With this photograph, I want to further explore how we can use this soft focus interesting effect. And I want to explore how we can use this with more intensity and also how we can use it with more precision or more focus. All right, well, let's start off by duplicating that background layer by pressing Command or Control J. We'll go ahead and name this layer Blur and Soft Light. Next step, let's go ahead and navigate to our Filter pull-down menu. Here we'll choose Blur and then Gaussian Blur, and we'll increase our blur here just so we have some nice diffusion there, and click OK. Next step, we'll take this to a blending mode of soft light. Well, here already with a really saturated image, this makes this even more punchy. There's the before and then the after. And one of the side effects here is that the skin is now much smoother. And it's a really nice way to smooth out skin, but it adds some interesting tone in there as well. And I kind of like that. I want to take this even further. So let's duplicate this layer. You can do so by clicking and dragging this to the new layer icon or by pressing Command or Control J. Well, now here on this top layer, I'm going to apply even more blur. I'll go to Filter, Blur, then choose Gaussian Blur. I'm going to add even more blur to this and click OK. So in this case, I'm just building up this aesthetic. Here we have that before and then now after. Well, let's say that at this juncture we decide, you know what, we really like the overall blur, but the saturation is too much. I don't want to affect the color saturation quite so much. So what we can do now is we can merge to top by pressing Shift, Option Command E on a Mac, Shift Alt Control E on Windows. We can then turn off these underlying layers. And on this top layer, we can change its blending mode to luminosity. And what luminosity does, it allows us to just blend the luminance value rather than all those color values onto the underlying layer. So if we choose luminosity here, what we'll see is that that's now our before and then our after. So we have this really nice diffused look, but we don't have any of that color saturation that was in there. Now you can use this technique whether you want to make corrections to your photograph if it's oversaturated, or if you simply like the original color that you have. Now how else can we take this even further? Well, what else we could do here is we could create a mask. Let's click on the Add Layer Mask icon. We could then grab our brush tool, paint with black, nice soft edge brush there, and I'll press the left bracket key to make it a little smaller. I'm just going to paint away this effect from the eyes. I don't want to soften the eyes or this part of the hair or maybe the fingers over here or this part of the phone cord or the garment. And what I can do then is I can paint this away so that it's only coming into particular areas. Here's that before and then after, or shift click the mask. There you can see before and after with or without that mask. That mask now allows me to bring back some really interesting detail. Well, how else could we use this? Well, let's say that all we want to do is we want to use this technique to soften the skin. Well, in that case, with an image like this, we simply need to go over to our Masks panel. In our Mask panel, we're going to choose Color Range. Now with Color Range, we'll click on an area of skin, hold down the Shift key, and click and drag across the skin in order to add more and more skin to build up this mask so that we can then affect this area. You can see in this black and white mask over here, what is white will be revealed, black concealed. In other words, the white area will have that nice diffusion on it, that soft glow. Well, let's click OK to apply that. Well, here it looks okay, except our edges are just a mess. You can see that on the arm, over here under the arm, on the face, because my selection wasn't big enough. Well, I actually intentionally created it that way just to illustrate that we can soften this out. And we can soften it really easily by using this feather slider. As I increase this, look at those edges. Now those edges are really nice. Here's the before and after, where we're applying this effect just to these areas. Another thing we could do, of course, would be to grab a brush with soft edges, paint with a little lower opacity, and paint with white in this case, just to bring in this effect in a few of these areas if we want to specifically paint it in. In this case, we can kind of sweeten up that mask that we already created, and we could also paint it away from other areas as needed. All right, well, let's take a look. Here we have before and then now after. And in this case, we just added a bit of interesting glow to the skin. And this gives you insight a little bit into some of those images that are retouched. So the skin just looks golden and it's almost illuminated. Well, this is one of those techniques that you can use in order to start to achieve effects like that. All right, well, let's look at our before and after one more time. Here we have it, before and then after. Let's also shift click that mask to disable the view there, before without the mask, and then after by limiting the area of where this adjustment is affected after. The last thing I want to point out here is that if you want to bring some of the softness into the other areas, we'll just lower that density, right? That will then bring back some of the softness there in the surrounding areas. So in this case, it's primarily focused in on the skin, but it's also helping out some of these other areas, which in turn is giving us a really unique look. Now at this view, here we have before and then after.